You're listening to Off the Rails in Romancelandia with the Stalker Sisters, a journey through all things indie romance related. Some language may not be suitable for all ears. Frequent use of sarcasm may occur.
So we are back, and we're joined by the amazing duo. I was the duo of Fiona Davenport. Fiona Davenport is the amazing duo of Rochelle Paige and Elle Christensen. And tonight we're talking to them about all the things that go into making Fiona Fiona. So we're the Stalker Sisters. People know who we are by now, but I want to give you guys a chance to just do a quick intro of who you are, what you do. You can talk about Fiona specifically. You can talk about each of you separately, but what kind of books that you write, and if somebody is brand new to your writing, what can they expect from Fiona Davenport?
You can see Rochelle's face. Maybe she should go first.
All right, Rochelle, it's you. It's you.
Meanwhile, I was going to say that since I'm the Davenport half of the duo,
Oh, fine.
maybe you should go first. But
I
now
can
I'm
go
talking.
first. That's fine. So, if you couldn't tell by my logo, I'm Elle Christensen, and I write steamy romance in just about every genre except dark or Omegaverse or anything like reverse harem kind of situation. And for us as Fiona, we write quick and dirty. Everything is generally under 25K, and all happily ever afters and insta love and babies, lots and lots and lots of babies. I don't know, Ro, what else would you say about people who haven't read us?
I would say for the Fiona books, be ready for a lot of insta-love, a lot of over-the-top heroes.
Oh yes, super over
We
the
have a
top.
lot of age gaps in our stories. We have a lot of very innocent heroines, which is an easy way to put it. We kind of genre hop within romances, Fiona. But you're always going to get those same things, whether you're reading one of our sports romances. In fact, we had one released today, spread
Oh yeah, that's right.
in our New
Stop.
York Nighthawk
Congratulations.
series. So it's kind of an awesome day for us. Or if you're reading one of our shifters or one of our billionaire romances, they all still have those same general vibes.
And I
then
love
I'll
that you're-
introduce myself. I'm
Oh, yeah.
Rochelle Paige. So as I said earlier, I'm the Davenport half of our writing duo. I've been an author for a decade now, which is almost impossible to believe. And I write full time. I've been doing that for about 9.5 years. I've been a romance reader since before I probably should have been stealing the books from my mom's show when I was like 10, 11, 12. And I used to read pretty much anything romance, which I think is why I genre hop a little bit too, both as Rochelle and as Fiona. So
See, this is why I should prepare ahead of time, because I'm all, here's my name, this is what I write, and then I'm done. You know, I'm similar to Ro. I've been reading since I was a kid, like, I don't know, probably 11 or 12. Just don't tell my mom. And I tend to genre hop, but that's more because I get bored, and so I write what I'm in the mood to read, I suppose. I think that's why Ro and I genre hop too, especially because Fiona's I don't want to say predictable, that's not the right word, but because all of the stories are insta love, you know, alpha, over the top, whatever, it's fun for us to then dive into different scenarios like the Black Ops and the football and the vampires, and you know, that way we get to have a little fun and also spend a ridiculous amount of time researching for stuff that we need to know nothing about.
I love it. How do you research vampires? That's a question that wasn't on there.
Well, that
But you
was
said
more
that.
of just like, because you know, when you have like fantasy like that, you can make your own rules. I think that oddly, the thing we researched the most was vampire names.
mhm.
We were like, what kind
Really?
of cool names would old ancient vampires have?
Okay, I can see that. So, and I love that you genre hop, because it does really mean that there's something for everybody. So
Yeah.
if somebody's really into sports romance and they need a quick and dirty, they're like, oh, okay, well, Fiona's got quick and dirty sports romance. And it's like, you know, the novella queens. So everything is bite-sized. It can, you know, I love novellas because I can read it like in between an arc and something, you know, else that comes out, or it's like,
Yes, I call them
you know,
palate cleansers for that reason.
yeah. Yes, that's another thing, is that it's just kind of it takes you from one world before you go into another one, and it's like, okay, I need something to reset my brain. So if I was reading something really dark, then maybe I'll read something that is, the complete opposite, a sports romance or something that's completely different. So it kind of brings up that, all right, moving from one to the other, but I don't have to feel like I'm getting invested for a week in something if I have something else that's coming down. So I like that.
I
So,
feel like
okay.
we need to do a little tabletop sign now for Charm City that says Michelle called us the quick and dirty novella queens.
Yes,
I
we should do
agree
that.
100%.
We should
Julie,
write
we should
that
put that on
down.
the badges.
Right? Yes.
I love it.
That's our new logo. Quick and dirty novella queens.
I
I love
actually
it.
really like it.
Yeah.
Ticket. It's all yours. It's all yours. I'm here to help all the time. But and talking about charm, I know one of the things that we always say is, okay, how did we find you guys? So like we always, when we have people on, it's like, okay, how did you find this author or these authors? And we found you guys through Hannah for Charm because we were
Yeah.
talking to Hannah McBride about other authors that she wanted to see at the event. And she's like, oh, you got to talk to Fiona. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know Fiona. She's like, well, Fiona's really, and then she's talking me through it. And I'm like, okay, this is really confusing. She's like, I got it. That was it. Then she like connected us all. It was like great because like I think that's one of the great things about an event like that is like, okay, I didn't know who you guys were. And
Yeah.
it was like an instant connection because we had a connection through another author and other readers. And we were like, okay, this is really cool because we're kind of getting like, you say two authors for one, but it's like one author for two, but it's like three authors.
Yeah.
For one?
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
So
that's how it works.
We're three
it's like,
authors in two bodies.
There you go.
yes. And then I looked back at the email the other day because I was looking for something else. And I think it was Rochelle. You had replied to the email and you're like, we're Rochelle and we're Elle and we're Fiona. And I went, I think my brain hiccuped. I was like, okay. And then I was like, I read it again. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I got it. Okay. It's like Elle and Rochelle. And I was like,
Yep.
that's two different names.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And it's totally coincidental that like it's Ellen
Oh,
Rochelle,
yeah.
not
Totally.
on purpose at all.
Because
No.
you guys were both writing separately before you started writing together, right?
Yeah.
Correct. We were
So-
I'm about a year behind her. She's been doing 10 years. I've been 9.
Okay.
And Fiona's
Yeah.
what, 8 together, right? This last month?
Yes, we just celebrated the 8th year anniversary, and we actually met for the first time face to face at a book event as well.
Yes, that's
What,
right.
9 years ago, about maybe 9 and a
Yeah,
half.
because it was, I
Very
mean, I
early.
hadn't even published by myself yet. I was
Yep.
still, I just had the one co-write out at
So-
Wicked Book Weekend. Is that right? Right?
I think so. It's hard to
Yeah.
remember
No,
which
I'm
right?
trying
it
to
was, but I know we met there.
Yeah.
trying to put the pieces together.
I'm like, life before Roe doesn't exist. I don't know what you're talking about.
Like, okay. So okay, I'm totally skipping over, like, okay, wait, hold on. We're going to circle back. This is where the squirrels come in and we go completely off the rails, which is why we renamed the podcast to Off the Rails, because I like to tell people we go off the rails, but there are no rails. We're just kind of everywhere. Julie, how did you find Fiona, Ellen, Rochelle?
Charm. Yeah.
Rom, yeah, same. So book events are key for a lot of us finding new authors and finding new people.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. So I know I'm like, my brain is like, because you said so many things and I'm like, I want to touch on that. I want to touch on that. I want to touch on that. So no, this is exactly why we do this. But so you talked a little bit about when you started writing. Why did each of you start writing? Like, why did you start writing romance? Why did you want to be an author? What's each of your backstories as far as coming into writing?
I guess I'll go first on this one.
It's fine.
I
I'm so
mentioned
sorry.
before that I used to steal the romance novels from my mom. So she is the one who inspired me to read romance, but she had also written a few historical romances when I was younger that were never published. But I remember seeing, because it was typewriters, I remember seeing
Oh my
the
gosh.
stacks of pages
Love that.
of historical romances that she had written, and I was always in awe of the fact that she had sat down and written an entire book. It didn't matter if it was published or not. To me, that was just a stretch goal. Like, how do you manage to do that? And then About 11 years ago, I was dealing with some like major life changes, and I was helping her with a very long process to get listed on the transplant list. And reading is my happy place. So I was devouring books left and right, morning and night, and discovered indie authors, self-published authors. At that point, I was a marketing professional, so I did a lot of market research. So I started going down the rabbit hole of what self-publishing was about. And I happened to mention to her that I was thinking about writing a book and self-publishing it. And for the first time in I don't even know how long, she seemed super excited about something because that whole process was very disheartening for her. And so we made a deal that I would write and publish a book by the end of that year. And she would listen to everything her doctor said and try and stay as positive as possible and do everything that she needed to make it through that transplant list wait. And spoiler alert, she ended up getting the call about 3 months later. So part of Sucked into Love was written in the hospital. I set up my website and my email address and all of that while we were at the hospital for her transplant, and she's doing great now. And then I published that not first. I switched gears and did push the envelope first because that story rabbit got in my head. But without her situation, I don't know that I ever would have, taken that free fall into self-publishing a book.
Wow. It's interesting. Always, I love hearing what the catalyst is, what pushes someone to say, I'm going to take it from my brain to the paper, and then I'm going to, or the computer or the screen, and then I'm going to take it from there to other people. Because writing a book is terrifying. Publishing a book is terrifying. Putting it out in front of other people. I don't care if you're an author on your debut or you're publishing your 80th book. One thing I always hear from every author is it's terrifying. You're putting your words and your heart and your soul a lot of times out there for people to judge, because we all know that even though we read because we love to read, there are some really fucking judgy people out there, and they're not always kind judgy people. And it takes a lot of guts, I think, a lot of fortitude and a lot of strength to say, I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it out there for people and focus on the people who love it, because that's someone's going to love your book. So, and the people who don't, it's not their book.
Suck it.
Yeah.
Every book is for every person.
That's it. I was I talking to the other, one of the authors I was talking to, this like the most off the wall story. And we were talking about reviews and people who write reviews and what they review. And I was like, every book out there has bad reviews. You can take a classic or everybody's favorite, it says a 1-star review. And it was the stupidest thing. I looked up like my favorite children's story from when I was growing up. It's called There's No Such Thing as Dragons. And it's like all 4 and 5 stars. And then there's like a 1-star review for this book from when I was like, 5 and 6 years old. So we're talking like, Stone Ages. But I was like, how does someone give this a 1-star review? And it was because dragons aren't real and the book wasn't realistic enough. And I was like, it is a children's story. There's always someone who's going to say something like that. I was like, oh my God. So then the author felt much better because she was like, okay, if somebody's going to be that petty, I am not even complaining anymore. So not every book's for every reader. So anyway, there we go. My little tangent story. Elle, what's your origin story? Your background.
Origin story. I started writing, man, I must have been, I don't know, 10 or 11. Oddly, I have been reading heavy books since I was in 3rd grade, like big monster books. And so I started writing a historical romance when I was like 10 or 11. And it's funny because I pulled it out about every 5 years and thought, well, I should, update this. And finally, I don't know, maybe 25, no, how old am I? So maybe 20 years ago or so, I picked it up one more time and went, yeah, this is crap. I was like, this is beyond fixable. But I was a professional singer, and so performing was, since I was 8, I'd been in a professional children's choir. So performing was my love next to my family. And eventually I got really tired of all the auditioning, and my husband and I have been trying to have kids for, let's see, well, this was 9 years ago, so I don't know. Somebody else do that math for me.
Nope.
What's 15? No, that would have been, anyway, whatever. It had been a long time. And I just got really tired of it. But when I went to quit, I got really depressed because it was just like a hole in my heart. I couldn't find anything to fill it. And I stumbled across indie authors, go figure. Jennifer Armentrout and Aurora Reynolds. They're the first 2 indie books I ever read. And then I got into a Facebook group for a read along for a series, and the last book was about to come out. And that was when I met all of these people, and I was like, holy crap, there's like a book world out there. This is incredible.
Yep.
So I got really involved in that, and I was at a release party for Kay Webster, and we happened to be talking about something, and she sent me a friend request, and we were chatting during the event via Messenger, and we just got to be really good friends. And we had talked about the fact that I love to write, and we were talking about, oddly enough, since we're on having a Fiona interview, we were talking about co-writers, and I was like, that'd be so cool. I wonder how that works. And she goes, I don't know, should we try it? And I was like, seriously, you want to do that? And 10 days later, our book was done. And
wow.
And so we released that, and it was like it just gave me the courage to go ahead and open my brain and start putting down what I'd been thinking about on paper. And let's see, I think I published, that was in December. I think I published my first solo novel in April, and then on and on it goes.
So that's the story of each of you. What's the origin story of Fiona?
Best origin story ever.
Favorite stories ever.
Yep. So I mentioned that. Yeah, I mentioned that we'd been trying to have kids, and let's see. This was 8 years ago. I don't even know. I can't do the math. We'd been trying for a really long time. At least, well, it would have been, I don't know, 12, 13 years, I suppose, at that point, Ro.
Yeah.
And we had done a round of IVF that hadn't worked, and we were broke. so very broke. And I can never tell the story without crying. So Rochelle calls me one day and says, I want to try this thing, and I want you to do it with me. And if it works, then we're going to get you pregnant. And I'll stop crying now. So you can take up the rest of it if you want to, Ro.
All right. So I guess I'll just go to the end of the story, which is the best part. She ended up about 2.5 years later giving birth to a beautiful baby girl.
Yay.
And I think the origin story is a huge part of why you see so much baby making in Fiona Davenport books. Like, it's all over the place. And
we actually have a hashtag say no to condoms on some of our swag. It's pretty funny.
But to us, the craziest coincidence that we realized when we were together one time after she had had the baby, and that was our series that was really the first long series we wrote and paid for the IVF pretty much, is the Yeah Baby series. And we realized, we were like, it is 9 books long. You're pregnant for 9 months. Like, it was just this weird kismet. Like, we just put it out in the world and manifested it. So that's why it's my favorite story, because it's got the real happy ending.
Yeah. I love that. Cool. Okay, now I have to like get myself together.
Yeah. no matter what happens in the future ever, Fiona will always be special to us for that.
Yeah.
She was and it was funny too, because in the beginning, I used to beg her to write with me, like since we met. And she was so nervous about it. So I couldn't believe it when she called me and asked me to do that with her. And I was like jumping for joy just for that. And like with Kay Webster, when I wrote Erased, when we wrote the first Fiona book, it was like it just poured out of us and it was done. And that I mean, we all struggle to write sometimes, but our brains are our styles are similar, and the way that we just think in general is very similar. And so it's just easy. I mean, it's never been a struggle to write with Ro, like ever. It just flows. It's just easy.
So that's how you started.
Just checking.
How has your process changed over the years? I mean, you've got a pretty big backlist, and I mean and a large number of years between you. What's changed? What's the same? What's that look like?
I think the biggest change is just the method that we use to write. We used to kind of play hot potato with the books because we would write in a Word document and we would email it back and forth. And so we plot the story together. We figure out who the characters are, the high points of what's happening in the story. And
we
then
usually did it through Messenger too, through Facebook Messenger.
Yeah, back then, and now we do it with phone calls, or even better is when we're in the same place at the same time, like at a signing, and we can plot together in person, which it just changes the energy that flows. But so back then we would email the file and play hot potato. So you'd write your chapter and then you would email it and it would be like, tag, you're it. and then Elle would write her chapter and she would do the same thing to me. But as time went on, we started to plot a little bit more because Elle is much better at like laying out a story and plotting than me. I'm a little bit more on the pantser side than the plotter side. So now we plot in Google Docs while we're on the telephone with each other, and then we write in Google Docs. So like you can actually see live stream what the other person is writing, which is kind of neat because now sometimes we'll even be writing at the same time.
Which is one of the things that, when we started plotting, again, like I said, we think so similarly, right? So when we started plotting, as long as we had a basic like sentence or two for each chapter, then if I got behind or Ro got behind, it was like, whatever, I'll just go ahead and write my chapters. And then whoever comes in behind that will just smooth out the transition. So there are many times over the last few years that we've just written like the whole book at the same time. You're writing your part while I'm writing my part, or she'll write her part a few days ahead of me and then I'll go in and fill in, or vice versa. Like, but it's just, it's always been easy to write together, but I think it's taken a long time for us to be able to do it. So to that extent, you know what I mean? To the point where we can just know what the other person is thinking.
Yeah, we have 8 years of familiarity with each other now. So it makes it so much easier to do it, backwards even sometimes.
That's true.
The best thing though is when we write like that, when we're writing at the same time and we haven't read the other person's chapter, I cannot tell you how many times one of us will write something and then we'll go read the other person's chapter, and we literally have written almost exactly the same thing. And
we did it twice in the last book.
The same turn of phrase or the same like action or like just something, and then we'll laugh our butts off because we're like, we share a brain.
I get that. I totally understand that. And I think it's great that, you talk about that process where over time you work together with someone for such a long period of time that you really do start to, your thoughts align, and you kind of have a feeling of where the things are going because you're thinking the same way anyway. You have a little bit of a plan and then you go with it. I always thought, oh, I don't understand how people co-write. It's got to be difficult because everybody thinks differently and styles are different. And how do you make a cohesive book out of this person thinks this way and this person thinks this way? And again, my background coming from a teacher standpoint is when I was teaching in a classroom, I had 90 students and none of them were the same. It's like everybody had a little something different, whether it was a turn of phrase or a tone or, whatever. And I'm like, how do you get two people who can align so well so that you can write a book that you can't tell who wrote what chapter, or you can't tell, did this person write this chapter and this person write this chapter, or what's the method? Because even different co-writers have different methods of how they write a book. So it's always neat to me when I find someone who's like, I can't tell who wrote what. You know,
We used to
it's
critique for each other too, which I didn't think to
Yeah.
mention before we started writing together. So we were already very familiar with each other's style.
And then I think one thing that helps it too is it goes through basically a triple editing process
Yeah.
because we edit each other's chapters and then it goes to an editor and then it goes to a proofreader. So that helps smooth everything out as well.
yes, editors are good at finding the tone switches.
Inconsistencies.
Yeah, that is something that even from an author, one author, there are times that I'll go through and I'm like, what happened here? What's going on? Like something is weird.
Something
And
changed.
yeah, the author's like, oh, I was really tired when I wrote that, or I had just watched, what was the one I heard the other day? So I was talking to someone, I'm like, this is like really like angsty and edgy. What the hell's going on here? And she's like, oh, she was watching something. I don't remember what it was, but I was like, oh, okay, don't watch that before you write because you just completely tone switched your entire book, went from this like sweet, fun, happy romance, and now it's like everything's exploding. I'm like, don't do that.
That's
Go
awesome.
back, watch something totally different because whoa. It was like, yikes, that was a really, really big switch. Julie, you're on mute. I know you were going to ask a question and you kept
I wondered, I was
talking and
like,
you're
is
on
she
mute.
trying to talk?
I
Yes,
thought I
she has a
had.
question.
I started coughing, so I was like, no one
Oh.
wants to hear that. But no, I was just, when you guys read each other's parts, do you ever just say, like Michelle was just saying, what were you drinking here? Or you know what I mean? Like, how do you decide?
Can I have
okay,
some?
Gently, that sucks. Or you know what I mean? Do you guys ever have that moment, or how does that work?
Very rarely there will
Oh
be
yeah, so
something that
rarely.
we read in the other person's chapter, and we're much gentler with each other than that. Usually it'll be a comment or a phone call. Like if it's a big change, which doesn't happen very often, it's usually a phone call that's like, hey, I was just reading this. What do you think about maybe doing this instead? We try and make sure that if we ever have something that we feel doesn't fit that character or fit the story, that we offer an alternative instead. So it's not just this sucked or this doesn't work. It's what if we do fill in the blank instead?
I don't think there's ever been an instance with that happening that the other person hasn't thought that's better. Every
100%.
time,
Yep.
yeah, every time Ro comes to me and says, "Can we tweak this?" and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that?"
And
You know what I
same
mean?
in reverse. Yep.
Yeah, it's a little freaky sometimes. I got to tell you, the best thing was when the first time we wrote a book in the same room.
Oh my gosh.
And we kept passing the computer back and forth, and we would like stare at each other to make sure that I wanted her to laugh at the parts that I thought were funny. And like, and I remember her son coming in the room a couple of times after I'd been there to visit, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times. And he walks in and asks the question, and we both answered at the same time. And he's like, that is freaky when you do that. Don't do that.
And you understand with the same exact answer. And he's like,
we call it twinning.
No.
I think we've done, okay. Julie and I know have definitely done that.
Yeah.
Ron and I have definitely done that. You get on a vibe with someone who you know really well, and then all of a sudden it's like you're having a conversation with somebody and you say the exact same thing to them. It's sharing the brain.
But yeah, Janice and I call it same brain. It's usually our hashtag same brain because
yes.
we will comment at the same time, and it literally nearly is word for word what the other is saying. It's like, that's weird.
And it happens in the Stalker Sisters chat all the time.
All the time. I think we had one of those the other day where Julie and I were typing the exact same things at the exact same time. And I'm like, dude, that's stop that. That is really creepy.
We're all living the same brain life.
We are living the same brain. But I think that is more evidence of that connection. When you find someone you can connect with, I think there is something really special about that. And I always like to hear when somebody co-writes, it's like, well, how did you decide to do that? Because again, writing is a very personal thing. How do you trust someone enough to say, I trust you with the other half of my brain? because that is what they're writing.
Yep.
You know, it's like, and then again, like you said, gentle corrections and gentle information and gentle feedback, because you get someone, nothing breaks my heart more than when an author says, I got my edits back and I can't stop crying. And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, you know, I know it happens. I totally get it. I know my authors feel that way sometimes too. I don't intend it, but I know they do. Where it's like, it's not meant to be mean or putting you down. Sometimes, you know, gentle correction is not the best correction in that specific situation. But I think when you have someone who you have that relationship with, where you can trust them and you know that they're going to be gentle, and if they're not, if they're snarky or sarcastic, you know it's coming from a place of love, not trying to break you down, because yeah, that could be really demoralizing if that's the person that you're working with, and all of a sudden it's like, well, what do you mean you hated it? That's
Yeah.
But I think
okay.
that goes
Sorry, the
back
dog
to
just knocked something off behind me.
the whole trusting each other and having that deep connection. Because I know I have said things to one of my authors, and I've been like, she's a bitch. And she's like, oh no, that's not good. That's not good. So she knows, okay, something's got to be tweaked here, because she doesn't want people to not like the heroine.
Yeah.
So I get that. What's the most difficult part of co-writing? It sounds like you guys mesh fairly well, and you know, is it the distance? You know, being in different states. You are in different states, right?
Yeah.
We are.
Okay, that's what I thought. What's the hardest part?
I think probably it is the distance. Like there have been
Yep.
some years where we've been able to see each other more often than others, depending on what's going on in each other's lives.
Oh my gosh, the pandemic
So
sucked for us. Like
So, like,
hardcore.
yeah, the distance in the scheduling can sometimes be a challenge because, you know, we both have families and commitments outside of author world, that we just then have to like get together and put our brains together so it's one full brain and go, okay, how are we getting all of this done?
You know,
So
Rochelle and I had to talk about it one time where I needed to talk to her about something, and she said to me, it doesn't matter what happens with Fiona, it's the friendship, you know, that's first, that always comes first. And during the pandemic, like I used to go out there for Shameless and I would stay with her for a week, and then we would see each other at, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 signings a year sometimes, and then all of a sudden we didn't see each other for almost 3 years, and it was
Yeah.
so hard. I just remember us talking and going, man, you know, I miss seeing you. And so that is really, I think, and we have so much fun when we write together in the same, like we just have the best time. Like, so it's, you know, we always looked forward to that, which is one of the reasons why, like, we just decided to plan a whole retreat around Charmed this year.
Yep.
I love that so much. I saw that on the room, the block, and I was like,
yeah,
I love that. I love that so much. I mean, watching the two of you together in Myrtle was amazing. And then adding Hannah into it, I was like, okay, this is cool and bizarre at the same time. It was
You know,
very,
people
very
say
cool.
that about us. You know that
Yeah.
people say that about us.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to tell you that somebody referred to the three of us the other day as Cerberus, and I went, I'm not sure if I'm flattered
Like,
or
so-
insulted about
right?
that.
let's go with flattered.
I was totally
Yeah,
flattered.
choose to
I
go
was
with
like,
flattered.
I kind of like that. All right, new t-shirts. But no, I mean, you guys do have a good vibe, and I loved watching you guys in Myrtle when you were working together, and I'm so happy that you guys are doing that for Charm also, because I think it also creates a very distinct, okay, I'm going to use the word aura because I can't think of another word, but it's true. And you know, when people see you guys and they talk to you and you're playing off of each other, it makes other people feel more comfortable, because I know this is again way off the rails, but not, because in my brain it all meshes. I keep seeing people commenting about how they're excited about Charm and they're nervous as hell. They're terrified because they're introverts and they don't know how to talk to other people. And I'm like, there are going to be people there who are going to suck you into their sphere and make you help you feel comfortable, you know, and that's what happens when people are around you guys. It's just kind of like, you just have this happy banter back and forth, and you're having such a good time that people are like, I want to do that. I want to be a part of that. And then you add Hannah, and it's like, okay, that's a whole other level of, whoa,
Yes,
so
it
it's,
is.
it just brings people in,
She's
and
the
it makes people feel
best.
comfortable. So
I appreciate that a lot because I used to be much more extroverted than I am now. I would
Me too.
declare myself to be an introvert now. But when I am with Elle, she is more extroverted than me. And so she pulls me out of the shell, and I'm like, okay, I'll come out and play with everyone then.
I love it.
You know what? We give each other a safe space, right? So
Yeah.
we don't ever have to be alone to be, you know what I mean? So when we face all the readers, we face other authors, we do it together, and we have so much fun that it allows us to be at ease.
That
I love
makes
it.
my heart happy.
So it does. It's great that it's great that that works. And I'm lucky to have that kind of a relationship with my co-writer. So I
Awesome.
appreciate that. You write as solo authors also. So how does that schedule impact your co-writing, and how does co-writing impact your solo work?
What a good question.
Yes, it is.
I think for me,
Do you have an answer?
I
Do you
do.
have an answer? Because I need to know.
I will prioritize Fiona words first because I know that Elle is waiting for me. Like, there's something about knowing that another person that you care about deeply is depending on you that will motivate you on mornings when all you want to do is lay in bed and read a book. So having her as the other half of my Fiona brain definitely gets those words flowing. And then I need someone to help crack the whip when it comes to Rochelle words sometimes on those days when all you want to do, it's raining outside, you just want a mug of tea and a good book. So I think it's good motivation is co-writing is.
I think that speaks to your friendship, though. I mean, that your friendship is foundational. That you motivate each other separate and apart from your common work.
Oh yeah. I think when times are the hardest, sorry, it's just emotional because I love her. But Ro has been there for me in that from time to time we've had to step back from Fiona, right? We never stopped, but she was just really understanding, especially while I was pregnant, because between baby brain and the ADHD and whatever, blah, 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 right? I couldn't write. And eventually I had to go to her and say, I'm sorry, I can't write. And we had to take quite a break. And then I had an infant, and then, and she's always been willing to do that. But at the same time, she's also really good at encouraging me, pulling the words out of me. Let's just get this one more chapter done. You know what I mean? And anyway, yeah, she's really awesome about that. So, but Fiona, Ro is a little bit different situation than I am when it comes to books, especially with the baby and everything. I kind of had a little more of a hiatus from my personal pen name, and Fiona pays my bills. So she's usually my priority because of that. But also, it's like Ro said, also it's, like I know she's counting on me. And so that gets my butt in front of the computer when I really don't want to be there sometimes.
So how many books does Ro
I was trying to count that the other
versus
day.
Elle write versus Fiona? Like, what's a year look like?
What does a year
Oh
look
dear.
like? A year
Depends on the year.
for Fiona will usually look anything like 10 to 20 books on a good year, 10 on a
One
slow
year, I think we had,
more than that.
well, we had, okay, hold on, I have to do math here.
Oh yeah, when we did the Mafia
But
books.
we did every 2 weeks for a year.
Yeah.
So
So
and then we crashed a little bit.
So 10 to 24 books for Fiona is possible, not including
box sets.
And things like that. For Rochelle, I usually run anywhere from 4 to 8 books a year.
That's a hefty schedule.
It is a hefty.
Now I should say I'm a mom, but both of my sons are older. They're 19 and 27. You know, one's a freshman in college, the other is finishing his master's. So my family commitments now are much lower. It gives me a lot more time to write.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, do I ever get that.
Yeah.
I fluctuate based on what's going on in my life because it's just always changing with family, not just my daughter and my husband, but my other family commitments. My goal this year is to write 4 full-length novels, but we'll see what happens. But
You can do it.
yeah, before I had my daughter, it was, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 books a year.
I think so.
Yeah. And now it's more like 3 or 4 novellas. So we're working on that for this year.
And you have a solid plan that you're going to be able to do it. I know you are.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
A
We
plan
got
is a
ya.
good thing. We
Cheers
got
to
you.
God. We got
Yes.
this.
You know,
So
and a lot of go ahead, Julie.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna ask, as far as your Row Elle book, are they similar to your Fiona
Oh, that's
books?
a
Like,
good
do
question.
they are they similar just in general? Are they?
Yes and no. So as Rochelle, I have a series, the Body and Soul series, that's very similar to Fiona because they're novella length, OTT heroes, jealous, possessive, insta love. But then I also have and I guess my shifters are kind of like them too, my Fated Mate series. They're just slightly longer novellas than what we write as Fiona. But I also have full-length books. For me, I think you still find some of the same threads that you find in Fiona books across my catalog as Rochelle, just varying lengths for the most part.
What about
I
you?
jump around a little bit with mine. I would say that the majority of my novella length are very Fiona-esque, right? With the happily ever afters and that, well, they're all happily ever afters, so that was a dumb thing. But the OTT heroes and the insta love and babies and all that. For my full length, not as much. So with Fiona, we follow a strict set of guidelines, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term safe in romance, and Fiona follows the safe. She's very strict to the, what's the word I'm looking for, Ro, where it's
So
like the
it's
most intense or
yeah, so like for
strict, or
safe,
I don't know.
safe in this definition is there's no others after meeting. There tends to be no other man or other woman drama. Our heroes in Fiona's world tend to be celibate and more than just for the short term. Our heroines, as I said earlier, tend to be very innocent. So it's a much narrower niche than what we write as
Right.
ourselves.
Mhm.
And I like to I like to step out of that ring quite far. You'd never find any cheating in my books. But they're far from safe. So because I don't, I think because I'd rather explore that part of the world, and I can do that under that pen name, whereas
Mhm.
I can't under Fiona. But it makes Fiona fun to write too, because I'm always like, okay, here I can just go with this and do this. Whereas with a little more complicated book that doesn't necessarily follow those guidelines, I have to think about it a lot harder. You know what I mean? So, but like I said, there's no cheating in my books ever. They just they don't tend to stick to a lot of those stricter rules.
Well, and that's the variety is always what brings people into things. But when you have something like Fiona, where it's very specific, the readers know what they're getting. And I have found that for a lot of readers, like it's safe. It is trusted. Like they know there are readers like me. I want everything. I will read all the things. I have no triggers. I'm kind of like, just give me all the things. And for other people, they're like, nope, I want this. And there are authors who are this is my path, and this is the path I'm going to stay on. And their readers can trust that, hey, if I need something that is going to be, um, of course, they all have happy endings, but they all don't get there as easily. So if I want something where it's going to be a very simple path from here to here, and I know there's not going to be any, they're not going to break up 3 times, and there's not going to be any other woman or other man drama, or there's not going to be, whatever. I know I can follow this path because this author is going to take me right along with them, and I'm going to get exactly what I want versus there are other authors where it's like, I know this is going to be full of angst. I know I am going to cry. I know that I'm going to throw my Kindle at the wall. I know they're going to get a happy ending, but the journey to get there, it's going to suck a little bit. But right now I need to sit in, what is it? Embrace the suck. I need to embrace the suck. Right now I need to sit in it, and I need to have all of that angsty, emotional, intense crap. But then when I'm done with it, I'm going to fly right back to Fiona, because I know that I'm going to get that exactly what I need to reset my mind of, this is the beauty of romance, where these things work out just the way I want them to. And I'm not going to have to go on this long, arduous odyssey to get there. It's going to be a wonderful story that I can just sink into. And, so thinking along that line, are there tropes that you will absolutely not write?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a good question.
So we have written one secret baby. Is that right, Ro, or is it 2?
Yes, but we had to be very careful
But
about
that's
how
what I was
we
just about to
did
say. We were super, super careful, and we've
Mhm.
never done it again because it would be the same story. It's so hard to write secret baby in the way that would not piss off Fiona readers.
But I think something else, like I don't ever see us writing a love triangle, for example,
Agreed.
as Fiona. And it would take a very particular storyline for me to write a love triangle as Rochelle.
Yeah, ditto for me. I hate triangles. It just made me so mad.
Do you have favorite tropes that you love to write?
Oh, I love forced proximity is so much fun to play around with.
Yeah.
Fake
I'm all about the
relationships.
stalkers.
Had a lot of fun writing already married couples in one of our
we did.
series. There's so many of them. Like that's the great thing I think about Fiona, is because they're novella length and we switch it up a lot of times. We get to layer all sorts of tropes that we love
We
into
do.
things. So you'll find almost every trope that you can write is in at least one Fiona book.
As long as it doesn't involve,
Convenience,
cheating
accidental.
or
Yeah.
but we're also, I think we're very creative, like with the Secret Baby, we've been very creative with being able to do like second chance romance. The problem with
That's what I was
that
just
is when
gonna
you
say.
have
The holiday
when you
story
have
with one. Yep.
when you have a hero who has met the heroine in our genre of safe, they can't even look at another woman after they've met, including if she was a baby. So you have to come up with a somewhat plausible, I mean, it's fantasy, right? But somewhat plausible reason for him to have been a virgin his entire life.
Right.
That was challenging, but we did it a couple times.
I love that you take the challenge on, though, and you're like, this is what I want, so this is how I'm going to find a way to write it, because this is the
That's
story
when
that I
Rose, the one who
want.
came to me with the secret baby one. She's like, I really want to try this. I was like,
Because
okay, you tell me how that's going to work.
I love the idea of secret baby, but my
Yeah, me
big
too.
thing as a mom is that I don't want to dislike the heroine for purposely not telling the hero that she was pregnant with his child and gave birth to his baby, and it's like 5 years later. So for me, it's not something that I enjoy, because then I get mad at the heroine and I'm like, but why didn't you have to have a very good reason not to tell him. Like someone misdirecting all of your communication to the hero. So you tried your best and failed, and he didn't know, so he didn't walk away from the baby, and then we can reconnect again. And I'm like, okay, that's my favorite type of secret baby. Let's write one.
Yeah. And I love that you guys say that, because you're like, I want to do this and I got to find the way to do it.
Yep.
So I'm going to find the way to do it. And then it's like, people are like, oh, I don't like Secret Baby. And you're like, well, just try this one, because it's different and pulls people into something they might not have read before. And then they're like, oh, okay, I actually kind of like that. And you don't know.
But if they are a Fiona reader, they know they can trust it.
Exactly.
They see Secret Baby and they go, yeah, but it's Fiona, so I know it'll be okay.
Exactly. I love that.
So if you could give a brand new indie romance author one piece of advice based on your experience alone and together, what would it be?
Mine actually goes hand in hand with something Michelle said earlier. I do have a brand new baby indie romance author in my life. My oldest son's girlfriend is writing under the pen name of Mindy Page. And so I've gotten to kind of be on the periphery of her journey doing this at the end of last year and into this year. And my big thing with her is do not read your negative reviews because
100%.
as a new author, that can, have a negative impact on the flow because then when you're writing, those words are in your head, and that's the voice that you sometimes might listen to instead of the voice of your characters. So that's one of the things that I've hammered home with Mindy is don't do that. But then if you were ever to do that, the next thing is go to your favorite author and your favorite book on Goodreads and resort the reviews by 1 star and go through and read those reviews because it helps heal your heart and those wounds by going, okay, wait, I love this author. I love this book, but there are other people out there who hated it as much as I loved it. Because every book is not for every reader. And so that's my biggest piece of advice that I give to new authors.
Great.
I love that.
How about you, Elle?
That is something I also tell her, but I actually go even further. I don't know if you guys have read, there's a book called Dear Writer, You Need to Quit. And it's always been I don't read any of my reviews because I read a 4-star review after I wrote my first solo book. And one thing they said, it was a 4-star review, so it was a beautiful review, but they said one thing that psyched me out so much. I had the worst time writing the next book, and it took me twice as long. And in the book I was reading, You Need to Quit, she says that, don't read your reviews. 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, whatever, don't read them. And I was like, this is what I tell people. I'm like, I don't care if it's 5 stars. That's exciting. If somebody wants to go through your 5-star reviews for you and then give you some, which is what I've had a few PAs do, that's great. But don't go looking for them because inevitably you'll see something, right, that you don't want to see. So, I mean, I'm kind of with Ro on that. That's always my number one thing. As far as Fiona goes, I always just tell people to make sure that your friendship can handle co-writing, right? Because if you can't take what they're saying and not be offended by it, and then you're going to ruin a friendship. I mean, how many co-writing, duos that we've seen where not only did they stop writing together, it ruined their friendship, right? So just make sure that you have the strength of relationship with someone before you try and co-write together. And then you have to be humble enough to take their criticism in knowing that it's coming from a place of love.
That is a huge thing. I would say that's even a thing, not just for if you're co-writing, but finding anyone who you're going to work with as a writer, critique partners, even editors, someone that you trust, that you can say, okay, I know that this is coming from a place where you want to help me be better, not criticism. And that is huge. New author, old author, experienced author, whatever, finding that those people, your tribe, finding that family that you're like, okay, I know that our friendship is going to outlast the words. So I'm going to trust, just like readers trust going to Fiona because they know that the words are going to be what they want. It's trusting the person who you're asking for feedback to give you words that are going to be effective and beneficial and help you elevate, not turtle, because
definitely.
Turtling's a thing. Now, I do have one author, and I call her out on this all the time. I know I say this all the time. I had one author who she got her first 1-star review. She did not read it. She saw that she had a 1-star review, and she messaged me immediately. And she said, I feel like a real author now because I got a 1-star review. And I was like, you are a real author, honey. You were a real author before you got that. But if that's what helps you feel like a real author because someone 1-starred your book, I am extraordinarily happy for you that you can take that and turn it on its head as that positive of, she's like, because that means somebody read my book who wasn't my friend. And I was like,
good way to look at it.
Yeah, I hadn't
That's
thought about it that way.
I love that so
I
much. She's
love
like, I'm
that
not reading it,
perspective.
and I'll never read another. I'll never look for one. But she's like, but I saw it, and I was like, oh, somebody read my book who wasn't my friend. So I was like, okay, good way to look at that. Yeah.
So do you guys have a favorite place to write? I mean, individually, and then of course together, you love writing in the same room, but individually, do you have a favorite place to write?
Elle has a brand new favorite place to
I
write.
do. So we've always lived in apartments with like 2 bedrooms, right? Because we just moved out in Manhattan about a year and a half ago. And so my quote office unquote was always like a corner of my bedroom, or before we had my daughter, it was a corner of our living room. Anyway, we just bought a house, and I commandeered this big room on the first floor and made my own office out of it. I painted it lavender, and it's decorated with Paris stuff everywhere, and all of my signed books, which I'm tempted to show you my face just so that you could see the books that line all 3 of my walls. Seriously, like top to bottom, all 3 of my walls. And they're not even all here yet. Some of them are still in storage. But yeah, it's
gorgeous.
it's been enlightening to have a space of my own to be creative. And boy, what a difference it makes, even just to have a spot where I can go that I won't be interrupted, but also to have a space that I created that is so very me. It makes it, it's my peaceful place, right? It's just where I go to breathe.
And your productivity, I'm sure, is better because you're separating yourself. Like, this is my workplace and this is my family.
Yeah.
So,
and they're pretty good about respecting that, which I was a little surprised.
Good.
It's hard to work from home. People think you're not working because you're home. And it's like, no, I am actually doing a job. If I left to do this, nobody would be bothering me right now. But yeah, it's hard when you do that, especially like you said, Elle, you've got a young one at home, an itty bit.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of time too. And then they're like, right in your face all the time, because that's what kids do. So I'm really excited for your space. I'm so happy that you did that.
I think
Rochelle,
Ro and I as a duo will take what we can get as long as we're together.
Ironically, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum from her. So
yes, she is.
I mentioned I have a 19-year-old who's a freshman in college. So now I am an empty nester, but I'm also a digital nomad. So we moved out of our home in July after he graduated from high school. And I've been traveling. I had only planned on doing it for 3 months, and now we're what, 7 months, 8. I don't even know how many months it's been. So my favorite place to write used to be my recliner in my living room, but it died right before we moved, so I threw it away. I'm not sure what my new favorite place to write will be. Yeah, it really was a sign. But like right now, my favorite place is just wherever I'm at. I find somewhere to set up, and if there's people around me, I put in earbuds so that I can just dive into the story and ignore the world around me until I'm done, and then reconnect with people wherever I'm visiting.
Are you?
I think Rochelle is much better. What was it? Oh, she never.
No RV. So right now, for example, I'm in Las Vegas with friends who are also authors. So we're doing some fun stuff, and one of them is someone that I've co-written with before. So we're working on another story, and we're doing a special edition of a book that we have written together and things like that. So I did go and see Elle, and that was amazing. So now, since I've extended my digital nomadness, I probably should do it again.
Yes.
She's like,
do you have a favorite?
I give her a pass because we're going to see each other at Charmed for a week, but otherwise I'd be harassing her about the fact that she hasn't been out to see me twice.
Yeah.
I think Rochelle is much better at tuning out the world. She's good at that. She can write watching TV, which baffles me.
I can't even read watching TV.
I can, depending on the book, I can tune it out, but
I actually
use,
need background noise. Otherwise, my
oh,
brain starts focusing on what's going on in my surroundings. Like if it's too quiet, it searches for
Mm.
sound. And so
Oh.
it's
okay.
probably from raising sons being like, "Wait, what are you, it's quiet. What are you
Quiet as
doing
the
wrong?" Silence is
Yes.
not golden in that
Golden.
scenario.
No, it sure is not.
Silence results in finding a 5-year-old in the bathroom with an entire thing of baby powder exploded on everything. You never
Yep.
want that.
Yep. Yeah. Always fun.
Julie,
Kids and
you had
puppies.
a second part to your
Oh,
question.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just, do you guys have a favorite snack while you're writing?
For me, it's usually all about the sugar if I'm nearing a deadline, because I don't do a lot of sugar, but like if I'm on a tight deadline, you can tell from the sheer volume of like open beverages that are sitting around, as well as the variety of candy. It's like I end up being fueled by sugar.
Sugar
Yeah,
is
I'm not
always
gonna.
my weakness. So if I'm
Have you,
consuming a lot more of it, then that's just all kinds of problems as it is. Diet Dr. Pepper
yeah.
is my
Oh yeah.
liquid of choice. And although lately I've been eating these ridiculous pretzels that are so yummy. I mean, I have a
The
bowl
dot
of them every time I
pretzels.
sit down to write. The Dots pretzels, yeah, they're so
Yep.
freaking good. But
They are
I'm
good.
taking that as a good thing because they're not sugar. So I'm like,
Yeah.
granted, it's another vice, but at least this one's hopefully not. I'm trading sugar for sodium, but I choose to see it as a good thing.
It's not a vice, it's a habit.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
there you go.
habits are things that help us sustain what we do.
Yeah,
So,
true.
yeah.
I like that.
Julie, like,
We can spin anything.
Absolutely. I knew
I'm
I
just
liked your
That's what we
lady.
do.
just fluffing some words over here for you, just giving you other
Yeah.
options to
Yeah.
put down where it's not a vice, it's a habit. And habits are
So,
good. Highly
So
effective people have habits.
absolutely.
That's true. And I got Ro addicted to my pretzels, so
Yes, you
mission
did.
accomplished.
Now you have to bring him to Charm and get everybody else
I
addicted
will.
to the
I will. They're
pretzels.
so good.
And that's actually where she got me addicted was when we were in Myrtle.
Oh, that's right.
So,
At Myrtle Beach.
yep.
See?
She ate a whole bag and I ate a whole bag. It was sad
She
and awesome.
literally brought like a 3 or 5 pound bag with her in her backpack on the plane. And I was like, okay, now I got to try these. Well, that was a mistake.
Oh, go ahead, Rod. It could be a mistake or it could be
I'm just going to be the timekeeper.
I know.
Yes.
I don't want my chicken to burn.
We're like, I know. So real quick, so what's next? What's next for Fiona? What's next for Ellen Rochelle?
We're currently working on the next book in the New York Nighthawks series, Calling the Play, which
Their
has,
football
I
series.
think, a hilarious meet cute where
It
the
totally does.
coach steals the heroin from one of his player on the dance floor at a nightclub in a very Fiona-esque way. So that's super exciting for Fiona. For Rochelle, I'm actually working on a project that's very different for me. It's going to be longer than what I normally write, and it already has the cover, and I've outlined most of it, and I'm one chapter in so far. So
Is this that one you've been talking to me about for a while?
yes, the one
No
I've
way
been,
you started it?
I did. So this is a book
Oh,
that I planned
nice.
to write at the start of last year, but I had COVID over Christmas in
Oh,
2022, and then I ended up having long hauler symptoms, and it
oh,
resulted in another health issue, and so it took a good 6 to 8 months before my brain healed back to my
mhm.
new normal. So I'm getting back on the writing bandwagon for Rochelle as well. So
Hey,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And Elle?
Uh, yeah. My I wrote I wrote a rock star. I told you I was a professional singer. So I wrote a rock star book it's my favorite book I've ever written. So much of me in it. And I released it 2 months before I got pregnant. And I have written one full length novel since then, but then I unpublished it because it's so bad. But I've been wanting to get back to it. Yeah, I know that look on your face. Seriously, I sent it to an editor and she was like, I hate your heroine. And I'm like, yeah, I was worried about that. So
oh,
it needs to be completely rewritten. But anyway, because things have been so mentally stressful, I'm trying to go back to the last time that I wrote with just such sheer passion, that it just flowed out of me and I was so excited. I wrote it. I mean, it was done like 4 months before it was published. Like I was ahead. I mean, it was crazy. And so I've had books 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 planned out since I wrote book 1. And so my goal this year is to write at least book 2. I'd like to write 2 and 3.
Excellent.
Great.
What is that series again? I'm sorry.
The first book's called Another Postcard. It's Stone Butterfly.
Okay.
They are fun. All the books are titled after a song, and the storyline is inspired by the song.
Awesome.
I love it.
Fun.
So now we got some speed round going. This is the easy stuff. This is the this or that. This is the things where other readers and they're going to go, ooh, me too. Super simple way to kind of say, okay, let's pull it all together. All right.
Yep.
So don't think too much. Who's going to go first as far as answering? Because otherwise you're both going to jump in at the same time.
Ro can go.
Okay. So Julie, we're starting with your questions. She's going to ask it. Ro will answer. Elle will answer. We'll just keep going back and forth. Julie, it's up to you. Go for it.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Tea.
Beard or no beard?
Oh, that's a good question. Can I say both? Like I like that the 6 o'clock shadow scruff. So like somewhere in between.
No.
Currently, my husband has a beard, so we'll go with beard. It's pretty sexy.
Hard rock or country?
Hard rock.
Oh, that's a terrible question.
I'm
sorry. I'm going to. I know that you wanted this or that, but I'm just going to tell you it depends on my mood.
Yeah, I get it.
Me too.
By the way, are you going to be singing at Charm?
Yeah, right.
Do we have karaoke there?
Karaoke
We
night.
can.
We can.
No, I haven't done singing in so long. My voice is trash.
But you did it at a conference with me. I got to see you.
How many years ago was that, though?
I know, but it was awesome to see you perform in person.
We'll talk.
Cookies
we'll
or cake?
All right. Okay, wait. Rod's question. Go
Cookies
for it.
or cake?
Cookies.
Cake.
Vanilla or chocolate?
Vanilla.
Vanilla.
Draft or edit?
Oh, draft. No, edit. I should say edit because edits go smoother because I tend to edit while I write. So edit.
Draft.
Beach or mountain vacation?
Oh, both. But probably mountain because I have very sensitive skin. So everything at the beach tries to kill me.
I like both, but a beach would be my preference.
Plan
Unless
ahead.
it's Paris.
Okay. That's reasonable. Plan ahead or live in the moment?
I'm very much living in the moment right now.
Plan ahead. My anxiety does not allow me to live in the moment.
I get that. Audiobook or paperback, or read the book, paperback or Kindle?
Read the book.
Paperback, if I have it available and I'm going somewhere where I can carry it. Otherwise, Kindle. But I mean, I do all three, but my preference is always paperback.
Cool. Awesome.
Very good.
I read
Thank you.
Hannah's whole series, her Mad World series, in paperback. Because I just
Oh,
had
those
to.
paperbacks are
You had
gorgeous.
to.
I know.
They are
There's just something about it.
gorgeous.
I've had that every once in a while. I get this need, right? Like the Discovery of Witches series I read in paperback, and Rose Blith College series I read in paperback, and I still own them all in paperback.
But that's probably because you started reading so young. I mean, I know
You know,
that's
a good point. That's a good point.
I think that's me too. If there's just something about being in a chair with the weight of a book in your hand,
right?
that nurtures your soul.
Yeah.
So
That's a great way to put it.
I think that's the thing.
I do find it interesting that both of my sons, who are of different generations, also want physical books instead of ebooks.
That's cool.
Did you read them bedtime stories?
Sponsor very much
all the time?
Yeah.
It's a comfort thing. Absolutely a comfort thing.
I'm sure.
Thank you
my
so
daughter will
much
be the
for
same
being
way.
with us tonight.
Thanks
You
for
betcha.
having us.
Oh, I know. It's like oh my gosh, it's 8:45. All right. We all have
My
to go.
chicken,
Don't let
I
your
can
chicken
smell my
burn.
chicken.
Don't
So
let your
I'm gonna
chicken
say
burn.
goodbye. But thank you so much for being with
See you
us,
guys
and I
later.
can't wait to see you at Charmed.
Yeah, you too. All
Charm.
right,
Yeah,
we'll see you
thank you
guys.
guys so
Yay.
much.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.